Mama, we made it. Blah, 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 blah. What it do now? Whoa. Yeah, we just did that.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed it.
I've heard other guests say like, "Oh, I can't believe y'all do that live every time," and I knew that, and I still am like, "I can't believe y'all do that live every time." That's crazy.
These guys yell at the top of their lungs.
You goddamn right. It's only fitting.
Yeah. Yelling indoors is dope.
It really is. And look, when I call my mom, I'm yelling. You feel what I'm saying? So when I talk to anybody on the phone, I'm yelling. Yeah. I'm either yelling
Screaming.
or literally like have to tone it down and end up being midnight love for no fucking reason. There's no middle ground. Well, outside of that, ladies and gentlemen, we have an incredible guest for you today. Just a little preface, man. Like, this is the beauty of this platform, because I've known this human being for, I want to say, upwards of probably 7-8 years.
Probably
right?
around that,
like, we've always crossed paths. We've had very similar circles. And just in the culture and the environment that we're in, I feel like everybody passes one another and daps up one another, and like the energy's cool. We like fuck with one another. It's just like you see somebody dap them up, hello, how you doing? But it just goes to show that, you know, beneath all of that, there's a story, and everybody has a story, and everybody is literally history walking. You know what I'm saying? And rarely do we get to experience that unless we ask. You feel me? And consider this podcast that motherfucking question. You dig what I'm saying? Ladies and gentlemen, we have Youssef Grant in the motherfucking building. Let's go.
I'm bowing right now.
It's an absolute fucking pleasure to have you.
Oh man, the pleasure is all mine. Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me, and thank you guys for having this platform. This is amazing.
You better believe that, bro. It's our pleasure. You feel me? And you know, it's crazy that you and I got together not too long ago and really had that talk. And it's beautiful how much you get to learn about somebody and just appreciate them as a human being instead of them as a function or like them as a cook in the kitchen that somebody's going to break bread with or, you know what I'm saying? Let's make that money, you know what I mean?
That network.
Yeah.
Network.
Fuck anybody that says networking blatantly. Like, let's network. Like, just slap yourself and walk away.
Hey, you're cool. I'm cool. Let's network.
Yeah, let's network. Be like, this what it's all
What can you do for me?
No one's ever had anything to contribute that has said that.
Like, what can I actually
network
take
means
from you?
I need a favor. Like,
and I will give no
Facts.
reciprocating
and I have
facts.
nothing to offer.
Can you imagine if it played out like that? Like, yo, let's
I would
network.
appreciate it more. If you said that, I'd be like, how can I help? Like, I'm cool with that.
I can't give you anything, but I need everything.
Yeah, I need all of your resources, and even though you aren't successful, we should help me be successful. And it's like, wow, that's amazing.
Wow, that's an arduous task to uphold.
That's
You know
a
what
lot
I'm saying?
of work. I'd love to.
Thank you for
And
thinking
I
of
would
me.
break bread
My
with
whole-
that person.
Yeah, I put my whole life on hold, and let's just work on your shit. Let's do that.
So, take it, we're not networking here.
We're not networking. We're just talking.
We're making it percolate, though.
Let's do that.
Youssef, you have an incredible story, and I really want to start with your upbringing because you came to this country as a kid.
I was 94, so I was like 6 turning 7.
6 turning 7. So tell me, where were you born? Like, what
I was
was
born in Cairo, Egypt.
wow.
I'm a Coptic Orthodox Egyptian. And
what does that mean?
That it's a small. We're probably like 5 or 6% of Egypt that were basically the race of people that were there before the Ottoman Empire, and so before Islam expanded into the Middle East. So as people got converted or other things have happened throughout wars and shit like that, we're the few that have still remained through that bloodline.
Oh, wow.
So it's
straight like
Egyptian,
original,
like Egyptian. Yeah. So not Arab, but you know, we grew up speaking Arabic, and it's 95% of the country. So we definitely blended into their culture, but we have a separate language that's only really spoken in church, and like there's a whole like underbelly of it. But we came here in '94 on religious asylum, so when there's like hate crimes done against you and stuff like that, you can apply for a visa, which is actually a lot harder now. So if that was happening to my family right now, it would be a lot harder to get like refugee status and do all that.
Oh, man.
So yeah, we came here. My parents worked in hotels. They met in hotels. My dad worked at the Marriott in Cairo. That's where he met my mom. They got married. It was crazy to think about that they had me at 28 and I'm 29. So
wow.
Right now, if I had a kid,
that puts a lot of shit into perspective.
It's weird. It's like, how did y'all even do? I heard someone say having a child at this age is like if you're drowning and then someone hands you a baby. Like it's work, and
that rings true though, bro.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think our parents, I don't know if they didn't have the ambitions that we had, but they definitely were comfortable with a more simple structure of life, and
Absolutely.
we have such grandiose. We're the generation that we're all going to be rock stars, so our plan is much different than theirs.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, we came here. We lived with my aunt, so all three of us lived in one room in my aunt's house until my parents found work.
And that's here in Los Angeles.
And that's here. It's in Hancock Park.
Okay. Yeah.
Beautiful area. So I started the first lap in a very beautiful upper middle class area, but being a poor person in that environment because we were kind of like renting that lifestyle. And then eventually when we were able to get our own place, it was in the world famous South Central Los Angeles, and grew up over there, but moved around a lot, Koreatown, Inglewood. As I got older, I lived in Brentwood, down the street from here. I lived mid-city, downtown. Now I live in Koreatown, but I've really like covered the scope
Full spectrum,
of LA,
Full LA, yeah.
in every aspect of the term.
What was it like for you coming from Egypt to the States?
It was different because we were like pretty much middle class in Egypt. I went to a British private school when I was a kid. We had money, we weren't rich, but like we could do things. And then to come here, they basically used their life savings on tickets and savings to live off of.
Wow, the sacrifice,
the immigrant sacrifice. That's something that's been a theme a lot in a lot of conversations that I've been having lately of like, when you're a kid, you look at your parents, and at least I can only speak for myself, but I was very frustrated because I didn't understand how things worked. And it's just like, why don't we have better things? Or why can't I go on this field trip? Why can't I blah, blah, blah?
Yeah.
But now looking back, it's like, yo, you just bet your whole life against my hand. And that's crazy to me because I'm not a father. So everyone always says, like, when you have kids, you'll understand what it's like to live for someone else. But, like, I don't have kids, so I don't understand. Like, that's weird. It's a crazy thing for you to stake me before you even knew me. And it was interesting adapting, especially not speaking the language and being educated. Communication was very important because I knew I wasn't dumb, but I didn't speak the language. So
you didn't speak English? I
didn't speak English. I spoke, hello, goodbye. Like I knew words, but I didn't speak English. Wow. So as I went out into the world and started talking to people, and they kind of looked at me weird, or I didn't know how to communicate. And I knew that mentally I was developed enough to articulate my thoughts. I just didn't have the tools to do it. So throughout elementary school, I just pretty much, that's where I fell in love with reading, because I like locked myself in the library, didn't do a lot of activities in elementary school, and just read and read and read, because I was like, I'm not dumb. I know I'm not dumb. So we're going to figure out a way to do this.
Wow.
And shout out my elementary schoung librarian, Miss Lonnie, who was this like crazy white lady who had holiday sweaters for every fucking holiday.
Amazing.
And I hung out with her for most of it. And it was a small library, 3rd Street Elementary. Yeah, it's a fantastic school. It's 950 million Korean kids and then like 8 of whatever other race. And it was dope because their culture's fresh too. A lot of Korean friends growing up. And then moved towards USC. Grew up over there, mostly Black and Hispanic neighborhoods.
Going from Hancock, for anyone that doesn't understand LA, Hancock Park is a very like traditionally, it's like the old wealth of Los Angeles. You have mega mansions there, but like the old school kind, not like this new money. Shit's been there for a while. Huge estates, beautiful kind of suburby type, very neighborhood. Like you could pick that up and put it anywhere else in like any state in the U.S.
For sure.
Like, yeah, that fits right there.
It's a cookie
perfectly.
cutter. My middle school, John Burroughs, was used as a high school in a lot of movies because it was that like picture perfect brick building. Wow. Like if you close your eyes and picture a cartoon high school, it looked like that. And then taking the bus back home where I lived, it was just a whole different dynamic.
Oh, so you still went to John Burroughs even when you moved to South Central?
Yeah.
And so moving to South Central, it's just like the entire neighborhood is so
it's
polar. It's completely
a whole
polar
different
opposite
thing. And it's funny because I've had so many like not personality changes, but like value changes and like how I carry myself changes. And I was a very like sweet, nice kid. Like I wasn't aggressive at all. I was very gullible. I was very naive. I was very like everybody's a friend. And then I moved to this area where everybody's walls are up. No one wants to talk.
And it's even felt as a youth.
Oh, for sure. And I'm an only child. I always dealt with adults more. Like kids, I felt like were very peripheral beings that I'm just like, fucking move. Like this is not the real world. You're a baby, even though I'm a baby. And I'm just like, what are the adults talking about? Like, what's going on in politics? And they're like, you don't know anything. So I got the pulse of the area really, really fast. And the energy was just much, much different. And I realized like, okay, it's time to adapt and it's time to like toughen up a little bit. And like, you know, there's so many confusing ideas about what masculinity is. And arbitrary ideas of like the alpha male and wanting to like control a room. And I wanted to control a room from a place of love.
Absolutely.
And it didn't work. And so it was kind of a thing where like I stepped into, I don't want to say this character because I was still being true to my own values and my own whatever, but
we're very malleable. Like
I definitely played the part, and I definitely like did whatever I had to do, started getting in a lot of trouble, trouble with the law, trouble with my friends, trouble with everything. And like, I was raised by my grandmother and my mother. My dad always worked somewhere far. Like him and my mom are still together to this day, but they have a weird relationship. Like as an adult looking at their relationship now, it's fucking weird. Yeah. But he always works. And I think they kind of are so used to their space and being in love at the same time that it's an event when they get to see each other and it's something special. But I feel like that's kind of even leaked onto my relationships of like, I require a lot of space. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, friendships, love, everything. Like when you're a person who needs space, people very selfishly make that about them. Where like, yo, like you don't want to be around me. Like, no, I just don't want to be around. Like,
it's a concept that like can't really be digested.
It can't be digested if that's not how you operate. So it started kind of going down a bit of the wrong road.
When did this road start?
Probably about 11, 13. And it's funny because I never saw it as wrong because I was never malicious. I just kind of participated in things that I didn't agree with or my character didn't agree with, but
it was more Darwinian.
Yeah, it was more like, I'm not about to be boxed out. Like, I'm not about to be the kid on the side. I'm not about to be picked on. It started that way, and I was like, nah. And I was actually very fortunate to looking back, I recognize my saints now. There was a lot of people in my life a lot of big brother types who were like, nah, this isn't for you. Like, and I wanted to participate. I wanted to be like, nah, like, I'm with it, whatever. Yeah. But they were like, you know, you're meant for something. They didn't say it in those words, but they were just kind of like, stay back. And I'm thankful to those people now because their sacrifices, whether they consciously made them or not, they helped me navigate and they saved my life multiple times. And got a little bit older and got in a situation where 3 of my best friends went to jail at the same time and then another one at like a month later. And so I was literally like left without my crew. And
at what age was this?
This was in high school, so I'm moving a little fast through it. But this was in high school, and then towards the end of high school, I met a few other people: Julian Edwards, Bo Bray, Casey Scheme. It was a whole different group of people that they came from the same world I did, but their ideology was so different. They were just so much more fun-loving and not about dumb shit. And it was funny because throughout my whole life, I thought I was someone who attracted trouble. I was like, oh, trouble always finds me. Like, why is someone always fucking with me? Why is someone always looking at me crazy, blah, blah, blah. And like, I was always at effect to my environment. Whereas they were just like, nah, like, we're just about to go home after. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you're not about to wait in the parking lot and like stare at people? Like, it's so like dumb now to think about. But they were just like, nah, like, we like girls and we like clothes and shit. And I'm like, yo, this is much better. Like,
this is way easier.
This is way easier to navigate. This is so much more fun. And so I always say that group of people who are still my friends now, and I still keep in touch with everybody that from that whole journey from before and after, because I think the reason I'm allowed to navigate those things because I never fronted on my situation. I never pretended to be something I wasn't. So I still am respected or loved in all those situations because I was always me throughout the whole thread of situations. So there's nothing to pull a card about. Like I always say, I never lose sleep over what people do to me, but I only lose sleep over how I carry myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as long as I do everything that goes against or that is parallel to my own codes, then I'm fine. And I think that's the reason why. Respect will save your life. Respect will let you walk freely anywhere you want. And when you're young, you, especially from Egyptian culture, like it's the most alpha, macho, retarded situation ever to where you feel like this concept of like peacocking and asserting your aggressiveness that's what strong people do. And now in hindsight, that's what afraid people do. Absolutely. Right? So the louder you are, the more I know that you've never done this before or you've never kind of walked down that road. And I'm happy to take the L now. You can't make me mad now. Like it's really, really hard. Yeah. Because I have too many people I care about, I have too much to lose, and I don't have anything to prove to you. So if you want to think you're the alpha in the situation, by all means, you got it, bro. It's all you. And it's not even that like it's not a humble thing. It's my ego's there. It's just it's on the other side. Absolutely. Like, I don't even have to entertain this. And there have been people who like still push and pull whatever, but it's like I'm having too much fun. Dog. Yeah. Like I'm having too much of a good time. As broke as we've been, as middle class as we've been, it's always been so much fun. I'm so fortunate from dangerous situations to happy situations. God has given me something that's so much more important than money, which is people I could trust. I have the same friends since I was a kid, like a baby, like 7, 8, 9, 10, like especially in this city. Like, absolutely. People have a new clique every week. Yeah, and they like, shed cliques. And they're talking about betrayal and you took so-and-so's girlfriend and you robbed so-and-so some money and they lent you had a roommate and they put the down payment, whatever. Like so many things where it's just like, I have other problems, but I don't have those problems. Like my friends come through. I trust them with my life. They know my mom. I know their mom. Like it's not gonna go there. Yeah. I know that's ambitious to say, and people are always like, something will happen but it won't. Yeah. Like it really won't.
What was that like growing up in the household with pretty much like your mom? You say your grandma?
My mom and my grandmother, who just passed away last year.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Man, our condolences.
Thank you.
What was that like growing up in that type of household during this kind of transitional period where, because it sounds like as you move from Hancock Park to South Central and you feel you went through kind of a little transformation of like, I got to be a character that's like more alpha male style. Yeah. But you're raised in a household of, you know.
Well, it was funny because I think a lot of immigrant children have this concept of like, our parents don't know. First of all, everyone thinks their parents don't know anything. Yeah. But if your parents are from another country, you really think they don't know anything. And you really think like, that you didn't know shit about dating or the fights or sports. It's different sports. Like when I was a kid, I played soccer. Here I played football. Like you don't know my life. You had a whole different experience. And then growing back, they knew exactly what I was going through. It's the same shit all over the world.
We know everything.
They know everything. And it was a little tricky. I had to humble myself because as soon as I became bigger than my parents or my mother, I was just kind of out of control. like size wise. Like once she couldn't really hit me no more, there was nothing she could say. And the rest of my life from whatever this stage of enlightenment, probably till the day I die, will be an effort to repay her for putting her through all that, because I know it wasn't easy, and I took a lot, whether it be energy or time or heartbreak. Like, I didn't know it at the time, but I thought I was just kind of flying by the seat of my pants, but it was such a taxing experience for her. And now looking back at, like, for someone to love you unconditionally, like as ugly as you want to get, they'll still be there. That's a dynamic that, like I said, I don't have kids and I don't even understand it yet. Like, to truly put someone through shit, and to kind of come out of the other side going, what the fuck just happened? Like, who was that person that I was? And I was always smart. Like, I always got good grades, but it wasn't through my own effort. School was just easy for me. And that's actually something that I'm paying for as an adult, because I never really learned how to work hard. And I used being smart as a facade of a hard worker. And so it got to a point where that catches up with you, right? Like, you if you could get an A on a test and not study, you start going to college where, like, you kind of have to study. Like, you can't just listen and skim and then understand things. Concepts are getting more complex. So you go from being really impressive and, like, constantly patted on the shoulder to average to behind. And that's a
very
humbling experience to go from.
That's a daunting
I read
experience.
at a post high school level since my first day of middle school. And I got great SATs. I got into good schools, and then I got kicked out of my school before I even didn't even want to apply to college. I wasn't even thinking about that, and I wanted to take time off. And then eventually, I went and ended up going to CSUN. Didn't finish that. I wanted to get a writing degree, and then started writing music, and that was going good for a second. So I left all that behind. And I'm glad I did, but not in the way that it happened. Because music didn't really pan out the way I thought it was going to be. And it was like, I got my big break like 5 times, and it never was the big break that I thought it was going to be. And I was so goal oriented that I never even noticed all these goals being fulfilled. Like, it was like, oh, dope, my goal is to, like, get a pub deal or to get a placement or whatever. And then as they were happening, like, I remember praying, like, I hope to one day work in a real studio. And then I'm working in a real studio, and I'm like, I just want to get this placement. And then I get a placement. I'm like, I just want to get this check. And then, and you move forward, and you never look like all these things are being granted. And you have this amazing power to, like, bring things to fruition. But if you're constantly chasing it, it never comes because it's moving. That finish line keeps moving and you keep chasing it. But yeah, so I'm learning how to work hard now. And developing those work muscles that it's tricky, because I still find myself, like, relying on being a fast learner, and I have to constantly fight.
It's like an awareness.
It's an awareness. You have to constantly fight getting lazy, or you have to constantly fight having things handed to you, or finding, like, the tricky back road way to get somewhere.
And even putting shit aside and, like, telling yourself you're going to be good.
You
know what I'm saying? It's like you playing a game with yourself.
Lying to yourself or self-awareness, that whole dynamic is so... I don't know. I have a lot of complexes, and I have a lot of, like... I don't know if it's from reading too much, but I have, like, a lot of hero complexes. I have a lot of, like, I always want things to be special and amazing, and I'm never really satisfied with very normal things that are also amazing, but you don't see them like that. So, like, when I started getting into trouble, I wasn't a bad person. I was bored, and I wanted a story. Like, I wanted adventure. And as you get older, you're still bored. Like, and now I'm never bored because I take moments to, like, I look at, I talk to my friend Julian all the time, and we look and, like, we'll look around at a situation we're at, and we're like, this isn't normal. Like, people don't get to do this.
No.
And it's funny because the grass is always greener. Like I have cousins and family members who look at my life and they're like, yo, this is amazing. You were partying with so-and-so and you got to travel to blah, 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 and whatever. And I'm looking at them like, yo, that's amazing. You bought a house and you have a wife and you got a degree and all this. Like they're supposedly hella regular shit. Like, yo, I can't pay my bills off of meeting this fucking whoever it is. Like that means nothing in the grand scheme of things. But that's, as much as I love LA and I rep it to the core, like that's one of the biggest problems we have out here is like everyone's lying, so everyone's competing with a false standard. And every time you place a bet based on what so-and-so looks like they're doing, you're doing yourself a disservice because
100%.
Because when everybody, and I think that's what's so dope about this show is like, I love that people are kind of breaking down those walls. Cause like, I'm not successful now. Like when you told me about the show and I was like, yo, I'm not in a position to tell people how to make it. Like I haven't made it. But I think it's dope. The reason that I thought it would be a good look was because I'm not ashamed of anything. Like I like this story. I like how rough my story is. I think the dopest timeline of life is to go from poor to successful, and define success however you want to.
Absolutely.
Exactly, because you said, I mean, look, that changes. You could think like, yo, as soon as I get my record deal, I'm like I made it, and then it's like that placement.
You can ask any of my friends about getting a record deal.
Of course,
straight up,
it's not tight
for real.
No, of course.
And I always think about Dave Chappelle. I quote everything to Dave Chappelle. That's like one of my heroes. But when he told his dad he wanted to be a comedian, and he was like, it's really hard for a comedian to be successful. And he's like, well, that depends on your definition of success. If I make a teacher salary doing comedy, I'm successful.
Absolutely.
Because I don't want to be a teacher. And that's kind of how I look at it is like, I feel successful now. And of course there are things I want, and I'm very like conflicted. And I don't even think it's hypocritical. I just think
it's awareness.
It's awareness. I'm very materialistic. I love nice things. I like fancy shit. I'm a craft nerd, so I like when people put effort into things and the things are the best of what they can be, whether it be food, clothes, whatever. But also realize how silly being materialistic is and how crazy it is, like how many people don't have anything to eat. So once you look at the world on both of those coins and realize you can be both. It's okay. You can care about people and care about yourself. And this is America. You want that dream, and I want to buy my mother a house. I still want to do all those things, but at the same time, I realize that I have what's important.
Yeah.
I have the thing that people don't have.
Yeah. I feel like it's always a balance because, there's nothing wrong with being materialistic and wanting great things, because outside of the fact that, not outside of the fact, but when it's a taste preference.
For sure.
Right? So many people, I feel like, that get caught up in that vortex or that tornado, if you will. The reason why it becomes like a soul-sucking leech is that those objects are sought after to define us.
For sure.
Right? So when you start looking at things for comfort or looking at things for meaning, it takes the meaning out of them.
For
but
sure.
Then from the standpoint of, if you're in a position to get these things, right, and it just becomes your expression of taste and also kind of like a celebratory scenario
for sure. And it's consistency.
Person.
Like I shouldn't know more about the shit you're into than you do. So if you're into something, be into it, nerd out. Like Joss Whedon had a definition of what is a nerd. And he said, someone who enjoys things that take effort to be enjoyed. Like you participate in your hobbies, and I respect that. But if you're just doing it because so-and-so is doing it, or because that's what they told you their standard of success is, then like you're hurting yourself. Like if you're not into that, don't be into that. And I'm sure there's a thing that you're into that if you would devote time and energy and money and whatever into that, you would find more fulfillment, because that's your shit, not somebody else's. But I think people kind of co-opt and adopt different ideals of like what their measurement of success is, because it is so lucid and fluid right now. Like success is not a thing. I work in Malibu right now, and I hang out with a lot of rich people who are very sad. Yeah. And it's a lot of people who they don't find fulfillment in other things, and it's things you can't buy. And I look at them like, yo, I have that stuff. Yeah. Like, my friends love me. My mom loves me. I have a good relationship with my dad. Like, it's all these things that I know what matters. Yeah. And I still want things, and I still want more comfort and to be able to pay my bills with more ease and all those things. But I'm trying to get better at being aware that other people are praying for my situation.
And I think it starts there for a lot of people too, when you're kind of on that path of like usually it starts when like you hit rock bottom or something. You realize, okay, you've hit a certain point that you thought was the road that you're supposed to get. For sure. You hit that point, you're like, wait a minute, I got this, but I'm fucking dead inside.
Oh, that's the biggest theme of the last couple of years is people fucking... When Wile E. Coyote's running off the cliff and then he finally looks down and realizes there's no ground. That was me from like 15, 16, 2017. Like, that was a time where like things just started falling apart and like dropping out the sky, and all this like house of cards that I built of like what I'm supposed to be doing just started crumbling. And it was like, okay, I could fall apart or I could rebuild. Yeah. And I can very humbly rebuild and take very, very small steps to kind of get my shit back in order.
When you were in high school and getting into trouble, I'm just thinking like in terms of your path, did you have like a dream or something that you wanted to do or pursue, or were you like creative?
Man, my problem is I love everything. I'm so passionate that I can fall in love with so many things, and I'm so easily distracted. So I'm like the perfect example of like jack of all trades, master of none. Like I wanted to,
especially coupling that with needing a level of excitement and needing a level of like,
and the problem is
perfection. From,
not to sound like I'm good at a lot of things. So like I learn fast. I can start.
Yeah.
And once you start going through the follow through, you go, do I want to do this for the rest of my life? And then I start feeling trapped. Like, wait, am I about to be a cook? Like, I thought I liked cooking, I did everything. Like, I still write music, but I did music.
Take us through that. Like, I want to really go through the path of, you made your transition in high school. You started, the group of friends you surrounded yourself with, like, that shaped your ideal of being able to have fun and being comfortable doing so, right? And you're a very smart kid, so like naturally, was college in your mind naturally, or was it something where you were like, you know what?
College was something I always felt like I can go back to later.
Okay.
I always wanted to, because like I always hear a lot of people say I was the first person to go to college. I was the first person not to go to college. My grandfather had a degree, my dad had a degree.
That pressure didn't bother you?
It wasn't the pressure of college, because I don't have like a very academic family. They just like, that was the step to take.
Yeah, totally.
And people got to remember, like, Egypt, how y'all see it on the news right now is very different from how it was in the 70s, 80s, 90s.
Absolutely.
It was very progressive. It was very westernized.
Absolutely.
It was suit and tie, mini skirts, music, film, theater. And so everyone went to college. It wasn't like there's obviously classes, but everybody, that was kind of a natural progression. So it wasn't like my parents were very like academic, like brainy types. They were very like salt of the earth, like blue collar people. And I definitely wanted to go to school, and I felt like academics was very important. I just didn't know what I wanted to master, because I looked at college as like, I've developed a general sense of education. I know how to speak. I know how to add. I know whatever. And now I have to pick a thing to become an expert at.
That's interesting. That's an interesting way to look into college.
And like I always think of like Jiro Dreams of Sushi. Like I don't know if you've ever seen that documentary, but
incredible.
Like it's just picking a very specific thing and then sucking a little bit less every day at it.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to find, but I was such like a squirrel that's just like loves everything. So me and Julian started managing people in high school. So we had a record label called Fresh to Death. And we were managing like who are now like Scheme, this Cat Light, Hope, a few other rappers. And we were doing this LA circuit. We were doing the pay to play Sean Healy shows.
I've done many of those shows.
and we were killing it. We were selling out tickets. We were selling more tickets than the headliners. There was a cat named Philly and Styx who had the Pit in Culver City, and there were rap battles. And that whole underground scene with like who are now all these amazing people that everyone knows is like the LA circuit. Like our network of people was solid. These are the people that grew up to be, your Pac Divs, your Dom Kennedys, all those people were just the homies that you see across the way. So I was very fortunate because now I meet people from other states and they're like, I was following that from home.
Yeah, and that was such a special time in Los Angeles,
it was beautiful. It was a beautiful, beautiful time.
And this is you still in high school?
High
school, but
high school. So like 06, 07. So like I graduated high school 06. So it was like end of high school, beginning of college. And we were doing all that, and it just didn't end up working out. Like I'm still friends with all those people, and I consider them brothers. But
what didn't work out about it?
I can speak for myself that I probably wasn't a good manager because I didn't really like doing that. Mm-hmm. And Julian probably was a much better manager than me, but even him, like it was a different dynamic where there was a lot of like effort being traded back and forth of like, I'll care for a little while, then he'll care for a little while, then the artist will care for a little while, but those things won't line up. Yeah. And so you just get your feelings hurt when like you invested so-and-so into printing however many CDs, and then this person doesn't want to do his show because he's bored or what. It was just like a young, like the infancy of like being a creative. Yeah, it was a band dynamic where like we loved each other. We're brothers. We had each other's backs, and we still do. But I think we just had to redefine our roles. Yeah. So that ended up completely falling apart. And so, Scheme's out there killing it right now. And a lot of people from those camps have been doing a really good job, and they've really grown into their own. And what else happened? And then I started getting into retail/fashion for a while.
So you were never an artist, or
no? I was never an artist.
Okay, so you just worked on the
I just worked on the back end, and then eventually I started writing music. But I was never I didn't have a good time being popular. I didn't want to be famous. That was not a goal of mine.
Interesting.
Like, it wasn't fun. I like attention, but in a very specific way. Like I have to be in control of it. And I feel like once you become famous, you lose all control of your attention.
Absolutely.
Or the type of attention that you get. So being an artist was never on my radar. That was like you said, that was a beautiful time in LA. If anyone remembers the Pit or the Spliff or any of those like that have now, I think they've grown and changed. And like I know Verbs does Bananas in Leimert Park, and it was kind of like the earlier stuff of that.
It was really bubbling.
It was all your favorite artists now, just kind of getting on the mic and battling and doing like bad shows. It was just bad. Like it was so beautiful and so dope, but
Absolutely.
It was so Project Blow. Like it was so unrefined, but I think that's what was so fresh about it.
It was literally like the seeds of the culture that were just starting to sprout.
And it was crazy because that was the first time we saw an interaction between actual music and closet music. Like I remember you and I did like some deal with Mountain Dew or like, and we just saw like, wait, like this could be a real thing. And then we started getting meetings where we're like meeting with labels and doing all this stuff where like, this could be a real thing. I remember Hope did a show at LMU, and it was him, you and I, and J. Cole. And maybe 2 people showed up. I think it was about 2 in the audience. And
can you imagine that?
I was there. I can't imagine that.
You know what's funny too?
I was sitting there.
It's crazy because when you, it was such a special time too. Because like when you brought up Sean Healy, like he kind of controlled that. Like
Sean Healy,
had it like
is the angel and the devil of hard work,
for real.
Because I probably gave him more money than he gave me.
It was that you had to sell your tickets, but especially I think in hip hop, and then like there was like a metal side to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Why does this metal band do
I didn't look at that side of the board,
like
but
the originator of pay to play.
Yeah, that was our pay to play. Like,
but you would get big shows.
You would get. I remember we opened for Quick. We opened for it was so many dope at the Key Club, at the Roxy, all those venues where it was like
House of Blues.
As long as we feel like we're doing a real show, that's all we needed.
Yeah,
and we had enough love and support to where people showed up.
Yeah.
And they wore T-shirts. And I remember Mizzle, and he used to have paper boys. He used to give us clothes for the shows. And that now grew up into LAX and to now JBC. And now he's with YG, which is super hard. Like, I love their dynamic right now because it's such a beautiful look at LA. Like, that's the thing about growing up in all these neighborhoods. Like, I see LA as so beautiful in every side of it. And
absolutely.
No matter what you say about certain neighborhoods, like, there's beauty everywhere, and you're never gonna find that type of camaraderie that I had. Like, you can't buy that. Whatever the dangers were, whatever getting pocket checked, walking to the gas station, and all those dynamics, like, that was the price we paid for having this amazing experience that other people didn't have. And I feel like me being bored, like, that fulfilled it. Like, I wasn't bored anymore.
It was literally an era where community was so solidified, and the internet and all of its mediums that it provided, even for said space, right, was more of a glue than it was an ocean and a vast landscape of just access.
And the internet did something amazing, which it gave everybody things to do.
Yeah.
It gave everybody a role. So, like, being younger, I think that's
gave a voice to all, bro.
That's why we got in trouble, was because there was nothing else to do. Whereas, like, especially like in LA, like, gangbanging was so strong back then, like early 2000s, late 90s. And like, our old heads will tell you, like, it was crazier in the 80s and 90s, but it was crazier for us than it is now, because I see kids now, you know, skateboarding and learning Photoshop and doing all this stuff where I'm like, that's dope. Like, we weren't doing that shit. For like, real. we didn't even, Photoshop, I remember, was like $1,000 or whatever it was. But I was just like, I'm not learning graphic design. Like, that's not even a thought. But now I'm so happy that, you know, you have kids that want to be clothing designers. You have kids that want to be music video directors. We didn't have that kind of variety.
You have kids like, now that want to create.
They want to create, but it's not just one way. It's not just like hoop or rap. It's there's so many ways into the industry or other industries that I'm glad that all those, like, side fields are now highlighted. I'm actually even glad they're becoming somewhat celebrity, because if that's what y'all want, like, you could be a famous music video director now.
Absolutely.
You could be a famous producer now.
Well, and the barriers to the information that you're getting are totally, like, knocked down, where you have YouTube and you could type in anything and be self-taught.
But that, I'll be honest, that kind of makes me nervous, because I feel like I was born in 88. We're the last generation to be on both sides, right? So I had to approach a girl and ask her for her number in her face. And I've also DM'd a girl and asked her for a number. So that both sides of that fence, we're not as technologically ignorant as our parents. We're definitely not as technologically savvy as my little cousins.
Yeah.
But I think we have the best of both worlds.
Absolutely.
We can navigate all the social media. We started on MySpace, we started on whatever. And we also had a lot of face-to-face conversations.
The internet and all of the things that blossomed from it were way more, I feel like, accents of efficiency and accents of access at the time.
For sure. Absolutely. But now we're getting to a point where, like, the argument could be made of why retain information. I can look it up whenever I want. Yeah. And, like,
we're in a very like unique period now where it's like
we had to do book reports with no internet. We had to cite our sources, use 5 or 6 books. Like,
you had to go to the library.
You had to go there,
check books out,
and check them out, and read through the whole thing. I can't search, narrow down. I have to read this whole shit. Maybe use the index to narrow it down, or the table of contents. But
the concept of refined information is far
as
more
pure
advanced.
Cut as whatever you need it to be. But that also makes me really weary of, like, who wrote it, because I've had plenty of arguments where we try to Google to settle it and we find articles for both sides. So now there's not a finite answer because everyone's opinion is put into this pot.
Absolutely.
And because we're of the generation of, like, quote unquote learning, and that's one thing that I've never had an issue with. I love learning. If you told me I'll teach you how to crochet, like, whether I need it or not, let's sit down and figure it out. Like, I love adding new talents to my roster no matter what they are. But I loved learning. I love knowing new things. If there was something I could pick your brain about, I'll sit down and sponge it. And I think now, I actually had this conversation recently where someone was like, I can just use my phone. But we're at a point where like technology is about to lap us. And now we're at a point where we almost need to handicap it. Like, I feel like a lot of our...
It's like iRobot right now.
On some iRobot shit, like, think about it. We definitely have the technology for all of our devices to turn on and off when we need them, right? But I prefer them to have an on and off switch.
Absolutely.
I want to participate, or else it's going to get crazy.
Yeah.
And also, you still are going to have situations where your phone dies. Or, you know, yeah, I can't do math to, like, 800 decimal points, but, like, I could do the basics. Like, I know when to pull the calculator out.
Yeah.
But which is at like 2 decimals, but like we had to do long division with remainders, and I feel like that's not even taught.
We had to remember phone numbers, and right now for me, like if I lose if I lose my contacts,
my number and my house number,
like for
the
real.
number of some of my homies that I grew up with, I would actually call their house.
And if they change their number, I'm not remembering the new one.
Yeah, sorry,
can't do it. Sorry,
you're just a name that I click on.
Yeah,
and there's an argument to be made about you don't have to have it, but I look at it as like you can arm yourself well or you can arm yourself shabbily, and we both might win, but I'd rather have better odds. So Absolutely. I'd rather have more information and collect more information and know things about things. And also, like, I'm a dick and I like to know things, and I like to know more than other people and challenge them, and my best friends are people who challenge me back, and they're like, you know, I love people with backbones. I love people. I don't
stand for something.
Yeah, that stand for something, and they also. I've always been a firm believer of like the smartest person in the room, you got to leave dynamic, because it's so quick to start getting dumb again. And if you're not challenging me, I love being around people who just bring something to the table. And like, smart is only the field that it's in, right? So you could be smart about religion, you could be smart about politics, you could be smart about music, whatever. As soon as we take you out of your comfort zone, you're dumb. So there's always going to be someone that could teach you something. And if you're operating through life going like, I already know, then you're hurting yourself to the upteenth
It takes
degree.
the curiosity out of things.
Yeah, for sure. And those were the dynamics of like the roughest parts of my life, of like this nerdy, smart, whatever kid who was having everything he thought was going to get him all the way there, got me like 15% of the way there. Yeah. And then there was no more gas in the tank. And it was like, and that's when, I mean, I'm lucky enough to have had some like amazing friends, amazing family members, amazing women in my life. Like, I feel like people always shit on their exes. I have had the strongest, most powerful exes that have contributed to me as a person in a way that I can never ever repay them for. And I always never understood like shitting on your ex. Like, that's someone who was a reflection of you.
Absolutely.
And the more you talk down on them, the more it's like, oh, then this shitty person liked you. Like,
especially when like you've shared the most intimate moments.
For sure.
I always thought, I actually feel you on that, because I always felt when you're with like talking about your ex, this is someone at one point in your life you were totally in love with.
For sure.
Totally intimate with, fully vulnerable with.
For sure.
And like you could go years like, I'm never knowing that person again.
Ever. And I'm also not a serial dater. I've had 3 girlfriends. Yeah. They're relatively long, like 2 to 3 year relationships. But like, I'm not like gonna date everyone I talk to.
Absolutely.
So the people that I've chosen to like, and they've chosen me to bring into my life, like, I still care about them. Like, you still can't talk about them in front of me. Like, that's
at the end of the day, bro. Like, all of the great things and all of the devastating things, we learn from them.
For sure.
Right? So if we look at it as like a lesson as opposed to...
Everything is a lesson.
A scapegoat. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, at the end of the day, I feel like the concept of shitting on your exes is such an egotistical thing.
For sure.
It's such a, like cats think they're going to be vindicated by shitting on somebody and getting that affirmation of agreeance from their peoples. But it's like, for better or for worse, whether it's a girlfriend, whether it's a friend, every interaction, being, if it may blossom or if it just crumbles, you learn from all of that. Like it's existence in its purest form, right?
And that's the thing, is learning to share time without this concept of being possessive, right? So I didn't own any of my exes. We were meant to cross paths for a certain amount of time. We shared amazing times together. We've learned from each other. We shared experiences. And then we got to a point where we changed enough to where the puzzle pieces didn't fit anymore.
Yeah.
And whether it was messy or neat or however that came to an end, that's how it was supposed to happen.
Absolutely.
That time period shared was exactly how it was supposed to be. It wasn't like, I wasted my time on you or blah, blah, blah. Like, nah, like, I hate that type of thinking. Like, that's boof. Like, you care about this person.
Yeah.
And I still do. Like, I still say what's up to all my exes.
It's one of those things where it's like purely to each their own. And it's wild because I had lunch with a friend of mine today, and like he's on his like super playalistic, like, you know, you settle down now attitude. And for me, it's one of those things where it's like, look, I'm open to explore anything.
For sure.
Like, look, the whole concept of, how can you remain monogamous? Men are savages, men are hunters, all these things. At the end of the day, any relationship, whether it's with a woman or with your friend, is a sacrifice.
For sure.
Right? And the baseline of it all doesn't necessarily come down to commitment or the sea of opportunities out there. It's merely, in this stage in your life, are you willing to sacrifice for something that you see could be special? And then at the same time, things end. It doesn't always need to end horribly, but it's one of those things where any two people, for a relationship to last, they have to grow with one another.
For sure. Especially
You know
at our
saying?
age, we're changing.
Yeah.
So the promises you make today, they're not lies.
Yeah.
They're just, I'm only speaking for myself at this moment. And I don't know what's about to happen tomorrow. But I feel like people use that argument whenever it's convenient. That whole savage thing. Like,
bro, good for you.
No, not even that. Like, yeah, men are primally whatever. We're also primally fucking morons. Like, the best advancements of civilization is when we go against our primal needs.
Absolutely.
I'm not supposed to fucking hit you over the head with a club and hunt my food anymore. Like, that's how we grew as a civilization, as a society.
We've
evolved. So, yeah, sometimes you got to fucking fight your natural urges. Like, it shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, there's something you're sacrificing for.
Absolutely.
And there's something that you want. And, like, I'm single now, but, like, relationships are tight, bro. Like,
they are.
We've all, done whatever we did. And, like, I don't know. It could be fun for a second, but it's nothing truly fulfilling.
Look, there are times, at the end of the day, it depends on where somebody is in their life, right? And no knock to anybody that truly seeks commitment, or anybody that is truly seeking the hunt and the fun. At the end of the day, to be honest, it really boils down to being open and honest with who you are.
For sure.
And how you engage.
And you're allowed to change your opinion.
Absolutely.
You're allowed to disagree with yourself with new knowledge.
Yeah.
And once someone, if we're arguing and you make a good point, guess what? I lost. Like, it's cool. You've changed my mind.
Yeah, and even that concept comes down to honesty of self, right? Because, like, there's been so many times, even when I ask my boys, like, all right, cool, like, you pulled a bad one back. You woke up and, like, now you run into the club the next day.
Yeah.
When you woke up, did you feel elated? Most of the time, it's no.
Most of the time, you feel awful.
Yeah.
No matter how fine she looked or how fine she was. And this is, I can only speak for myself, or maybe it's my age now, but you get to a point where, like, if the connection's not that dope, like, you're wasting everybody's time.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I got with relationships, where, like, I'm not even really looking right now because it's like a league thing. Like, if I don't like the pool that I'm dating in, then I got to go back to the drawing board, upgrade myself, and then come back out and be like, okay, who's at level 2?
Absolutely.
Like, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. Like, I don't really want to waste people's time. It's I know that's like cliche to say, but it's not enough anymore.
Absolutely.
Like,
and I feel like that point in and of itself plays a very significant role in your dance with curiosity.
For sure.
Because you're an extremely curious cat. And, in your it's beautiful to like for the first time see and hear a homie have such a love for story, right? And at the same time, you know, yearn for the experiences that a multitude of stories provide, but also question fairly quickly how fruitful the story is for you.
For sure.
Right. And it plays a role in this saga that we call your life, right?
Right.
In that your curiosity tied in with your level of intellect is like a cocktail for real though, but it's like a cocktail for like very sudden realization.
Oh, but they go against each other.
Yeah.
That's where my handicap is. I started college as a physics major and then changed it to music and then creative writing and then dropped out. So I had a really ill physics teacher in high school. Shout out to Dr. Waddell. And he put me on to a famous physicist named Richard Feynman. And he worked on the Manhattan Project. He wrote a bunch of books. And I read this book called Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman. And he was a physicist, but he was just like a curious character. And I really related to like his concept of just like looking at things sideways and asking why, and then using science to figure out why. And then I got into it, and like it wasn't that. It wasn't like a dark comedy. It was just like numbers for 3 semesters, and I was like, this is kind of dumb. So I moved on, and I was like, okay, I want to do music, but like my theories on music were the same as my theories on fashion. Like you're studying people who pioneered things, so you're applying a cookie cutter formula to what's supposed to be like raw, chaotic emotion.
You're plagiarizing.
You're plagiarizing. And you're not even plagiarizing product, you're plagiarizing process, which is the most special part. So left that, and I was like, look, I've always wanted to teach. I like talking to people. I had a small stint with like poetry at the Poetry Lounge at the Greenway Court Theater and became a family member over there, performed a lot. They welcomed me with open arms. And I loved writing, so I was like, okay, I'll write books, I'll teach. I had a friend, Dr. Javon Johnson now, who I saw him. He was also from roughly where I'm from, and he's a doctor. He got his master's and his PhD. I might be wrong. I think it's like culture and gender studies or something smart.
Yeah.
And he finished at like 29.
Wow.
And I was just like, yo, this is crazy. Like there was such a distinguished nature about it. And he was still so honest with himself about like who he was. Like, I don't like when intellect is boxed into like snobby, smart, like
where it's tied with a ribbon. And
it's tied with a ribbon. Like you can be intellectual and be from wherever you're from, talk however you talk, carry the story that you've brought. Like I was watching an interview with Vince Staples on Joe Budden's show. I forgot what it's called, but he's one of those people where like hella smart, but he's not like trying to sound smart. He just knows more than you. Yeah. And that's all you need to be.
He's experienced more than you have.
But he's self-aware and he knows himself. Like, and I don't even know dude, but I just get that energy of like the self-awareness.
Absolutely.
That's self-awareness, honesty. That's one of the biggest secrets of life. Like once you start kind of meeting your true self halfway, you'll have a much easier journey. Like the more you fight it, you're doing extra work.
Absolutely.
So much extra work. Whereas like if you stop comparing your situation with other people's situations, if you stop kind of using other people's adventures as a benchmark, then you'll allow yourself to go at the pace that you're supposed to go at.
As well as if you stop putting as much weight on what you're currently doing as a benchmark to where you're going to eventually go.
Exactly.
Right? Because I feel like that's quintessentially your youth's plight, if you will.
For sure. Right? And you had to have those adventures I love the word adventure because I feel like I'm in a fucking book. Yeah. But you had to have those adventures to get to here. Like I had to go through a lot of shit to have the passive calmness that I've earned now. Like, and I see it so many times where like certain people will be so loud and just ask for so much and they're spewing so much negativity. And I'm just like, you haven't experienced it yet. And I hope you don't, because it sucks. But when you know that something can go from you stepped on my shoes to people are dying, then you're a lot more careful with how you choose your words. You're a lot more careful with what you decide to embark on. And I feel like that's the thing. If you don't know it, how would you know?
And if you can associate the pain with the end result, with the and compare it to the disrespect that's initially felt, it's like, come on.
It's nothing. It's not. Like I said, these are there's still, of course, things I hold sacred, but 9 times out of 10, you can have that win.
Absolutely.
Because I don't need anything from you. My friends know who I am, so I don't have to prove anything to them. Usually, the room knows who I am, so I don't have to prove anything to them. So I'd rather not put on a show. I'd rather talk to you, get to the bottom of whatever misunderstanding it was, because it probably wasn't a genuine issue, and have fun the rest of our night versus me ruining the night. And that's the thing. I don't have a good medium. It's either like two extremes. And I think people have a very romantic notion of that type of macho, whatever, violent. I'll say violence and aggression and all that. They have very storybook concepts of it, but that's just because they haven't experienced it. And like, I've had exes go like, "You're never jealous. Like, you never react or you never do whatever." And I'm like, okay, but if I hit somebody with a bar stool, now am I doing too much? Because like I don't have a medium. So I'm trying to tell you that like I'd rather laugh and dap him up and like be thankful that he thinks the girl that chooses me is pretty enough to whatever. And
also it's like, yo, how the fuck would somebody else know? So who are we like? What's the issue here?
The issue is always insecurity.
Absolutely.
People need validation. People are not. And I still need it sometimes. People are not as confident in themselves.
It just depends on where we're looking for it.
Exactly. You feel what I'm saying? And now, like, I'm at the point where, like, if my mom is proud of who I've become, then that's all I need.
It's amazing. It's like one of the things we tell people is like, well, I haven't made it yet. I don't know if I should come on the show. I was like, yo, what does your mom think? Is she proud of you? Well, yeah, my mom loves me. All right.
For real.
And so let's get to we can keep talking about whatever subject, but I want to like wrap up the journey part.
Let's get it.
Because I think it's hilarious right now that I just started school. I just started a bachelor's degree. So I'm going to school for transportation design. I
want to take you back though before we go.
Okay, we can go there.
I want to. We definitely gonna go there.
Wherever you want to go.
Is you went into music and you realized it wasn't for you.
And I didn't realize it wasn't for me.
It wasn't fulfilling at the.
It had to be on my terms.
Absolutely, right.
So I started doing music. I started working with like one of my best friends, K. Roosevelt, who just got a new deal, and like y'all are about to go crazy over his new shit. But
he's an incredible
artist. He was kind of one of those things where like we bonded instantly. He was like a later friend in my life.
Yeah,
but like. He was a musician who was producing. I was an author who was writing music. So we felt we were very valid in our fields. Where like everybody's taking shortcuts and they're using like whatever plugins and he's over there playing the drums. And everybody's like making up and mumbling words and I'm a fucking story writer who's bringing that to music. So it was a thing where like we kind of patted ourselves on the back and we were like, we could rock with each other.
Yeah.
And we went on that journey, started working with the amazing Hit Boy and his whole camp, and we still fuck with them very heavily. And like, it was just a surreal experience. It was a fun couple of summers of like tasting this good life.
Absolutely.
Started getting more work. Started getting respect as a very, very tiny amount of respect as a songwriter. Was just being allowed in the room.
Was this before your TV and film experience?
This was after.
Okay.
So I even forget certain experiences.
No, but that's why I want to take it exactly. But that's the beauty of us talking about your story beforehand.
The funny thing is, I have such a bad sense of time and like gauging time that I don't even really know what happened when. So and it all kind of overlaps. So
absolutely, but that's what we're all here for.
After high school, my best friend Julian's mother, who worked at BET, she got me a job as a PA on the BET Awards. And I excelled really fast, and I started getting promotions, and I was a production coordinator for a while. I worked for Food Network, MTV, VH1, 51 Minds. I did a bunch of shows. I did a Michael Jackson special right when he died. And it started moving really fast. I was making good money, but it was like 15, 18-hour days. Anyone who's worked television production knows, like, it's
a dedication.
hard, and it's all in. So, like, the next step would be, like, to try to become a segment producer, maybe produce something, maybe try to veer into the writer's room, whatever. But, again, it was those things. It was one of those situations where, like, I'm good enough to be a contender, but then I have to ask myself, do I want this? Because this didn't leave any time for anything else. So I couldn't have hobbies. I couldn't do music. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do that. It was like, are you about to work in TV or not? And this is it. Are you about to do it? And I was like, nope. And that was it. Because I didn't love it, and it was a lot of work. And it was good money, but I didn't even have time to spend the money.
Yeah. That's such a conundrum. Like you grow up, like, thinking stability, good career, like these bankers and all these, like, different professions where it's like opulence, putting in insane hours. But then when real life sets in, like, the thought and the aspiration towards certain things, you can't weigh out what your lifestyle and experience is and even put that into perspective.
And I'm thankful that I had a perspective on that early, because I decided, because of certain situations with my dad working a lot, and the people that raised me, which were fucking Uncle Phil, Tim Allen, fucking
his wild ass neighbor,
Mr. Feeney, Wilson, all those people. Those are the ones who raised me. So I decided very early on that I have to be a corny TV dad. I have to barbecue. I have to wear an apron that says something funny. And so that X'd out a lot of jobs. I'm not about to put in 150 hours a week and never see my kids or never hang out with my wife. So that right there allowed me to, like, take a mental pay cut. Like, I don't need to be a billionaire. I don't need to be a millionaire if I get to spend time with the people I care about, maintain my friendships, like, realizing that that's more important to me. And I still want things. Yeah.
I mean, but you had a concept of balance.
Yeah, for sure. Because I know a lot, like I said, I know a lot of people who they make more than enough money, and you just realize, like, that's not enough. Yeah, if you don't get to hang out with the people you're supporting, then you're just a bank to them.
What does the excess mean?
And what does the excess mean exactly? And, like, if I could have more fun with my family, packing up the car and going to the beach, and you're about to go to Paris with your family, but you're all about to go your separate ways because y'all don't really know each other. Yeah. And your kid, the baby's on the iPad, the girl's on her phone, and your wife is, taking wine and Adderall. Like, it is what it is, but that's someone's life, and I'm sure that there are beautiful things about it, but that's not what I want.
Absolutely.
I had a very flimsy family structure, and it's important to me to have a solid family structure.
Absolutely.
And, like, no one in my house has owned a home. So when that happens, I will be the first homeowner where my kids can look back and go, that's home. Because I realized, going from apartment to apartment to apartment, your sense of, like, anchor, your sense of, like, you remember the safe spot when you play freeze tag, what's safe? You never had that.
You never do.
There's never a true, like, I don't have, like, when you say, where'd you grow up? I don't really have a place I think about. Like, it was all these things. So I want my future family to have, like, the neighborhood, the block you go on, you come back 30 years later and drive by it. Like, all of those things. And it's
but you can't want unless you haven't had.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
You can't.
Or even know it.
Yeah. And the beauty is that, like, experiences that we have, whether they're fruitful, or whether they really, like, bring a void to ourselves, is that the experience alone allows us to realize what we want and what we don't want.
For sure. And that's allowing those experiences to direct your journey. And, like, not being so concrete into what you think you know, being allowed to change. And, like I said, I've been blessed with amazing women in my life, but the problem when you like strong, independent women with backbones is you got to deal with a strong, independent woman with a backbone who is not going to let you get away with shit.
Absolutely.
And having a whole life where people let me get away with shit because I could out-talk them or out-think them or whatever, when I find a challenge is when I'm intrigued.
Absolutely.
And I'm a very weird, particular set of old-fashioned and progressive. So I have very, like, traditional old values, I'm very religious by my own definitions because that has had to change over time because I've had to adapt it. I left Christianity for a certain period of time. Not left like officially, like they don't make you sign anything, but I came back with like, okay, I still believe this, and this, but I'm going to negate this because I don't fuck with that.
Your paradigm
it shifted because it could be whatever I define it to be because I'm praying to whoever I choose to pray to. And so I had to cross out some of the judgmental parts, or I had to cross out some of the closed-minded parts because that didn't look like what the Christ told me I was supposed to walk through. So now you're contradicting yourself. So now I want to rewrite my own formula and raise myself in a new way.
Absolutely.
And I came back even better than before. I remember my mother saw a book called Rebel Buddha on my countertop. And she was like, why are you reading a Buddhism book? And because to her, that's like a different God.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, yo, this is probably making me a better Christian.
Yeah.
Like, value, you can't have horse blinders to values, to new concepts, to ideas. Like, the God that I was raised is looking after me would never want me to not learn something. Mm-hmm. They would never want me to like close a book because that's not for you. No, all information is for you. You're entitled to that.
Absolutely.
So those are kind of the new definitions of everything. And like I said, I was raised by TV dads, so I have a very clear concept of what I want, which can also change.
Absolutely.
I'm always open to change. I'm always open to
That's
be wrong.
life, bro.
I'm so open to be wrong. I was a huge Bill Cosby fan. Fuck Bill Cosby now. Like that's true. You know, like it is what it is. Like I had records, I had tapes.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big stand-up fan. So, and I think stand-up comedians are some of the smartest people in the world because they apply very complex analytical things to things that smart people wouldn't feel are worthy of those thinking patterns. And I think when you take someone who could have been a physicist and they're looking at a cup of coffee and they're saying their perspective on it, that's worth something to me.
Absolutely.
Like, it's important. And I listen to those people very carefully because humor is a way to digest things. It's a way we struggle with pain, with suffering. It's a way we struggle with change. It's the way we learn. Comedians, I think, are just as influential in my life as all the dead authors I've hung out with.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I want to say, like, it's interesting how the things that you really want are very regular things. Yeah. And you could actually achieve that by just living a very conventional lifestyle.
For sure.
When you think about, like, what are your big dreams? What are your big aspirations? It's really just fucking normal.
It's like super normal,
quote unquote, right?
I have a homie from Portland, and we always joke about like how like naive and like unscathed his thought process is, and he always says like he said something really special to me that I'm very thankful he said. He said the things you've accomplished are just as unlikely as the things you want. Yeah, like.
For real.
You know, I got signed. I did records with huge people. I've partied with the best of them. I've hung out with the best of them. They're on my phone. Like, I have this amazing life. And the things I want are just as amazing. But because I live in this magical fucking fairy tale of a city, it's tangible. It's very realistic for me to have whatever I want.
Well, and it's interesting that ultimately what you want is like a very conventional lifestyle. And the things you've done, they contradict that. In some element, I mean, but when you're living in LA, all kind of
it's all. That's what I mean. It's all blurry. Like,
right?
I still.
It's the facade. Like, look, the fantasy of this shit is very different than the reality.
For sure.
That's just how it is. What I want to get into is how come you never actually did go down maybe a more conventional side of things, knowing like, look, I don't need to be so like I can be a curious dude and hang out in the library and learn all I want while I just work this 9-to-5 job and still get my fulfillment out of there. Because like, what made you kind of go from?
I don't know. It's an interesting question, but I think I'm just so like theatrical by nature, and I think it's probably an arrogance of thinking like I'm supposed to be on a very special path, and even if my path was normal, it would be fucking wild. If I was a fucking, I don't know. I don't think I would do any of those jobs because that would feel a little boring. I don't know. That was a good question. I feel like I never wanted that. It's the selfishness of wanting everything I want specifically my way. Mm-hmm. So just because I want a normal life and a home and a family and all those things, like I traveled a lot when I was a kid, and it wasn't because we were rich. It was because travel was important. And I collect watches, not because I can afford to collect watches. It's because I nerd out about the fact that something can be automatically made to not run with a battery and made by hand. Like, I still love the extremes of life, and I still love the adventures. And as much as I can act like I'm too cool for all the fun shit that I do, like, it's still dope. Yeah, I'm still amazed every day. There are moments where my light bulb comes on and I'm like, oh, I'm standing next to X, Y, and Z, and I'm in this room and they let, fucking around with whoever I was fucking around. And like, I've been in a room with Diddy. I've been in a room with Pharrell having conversations. I've been in a room with just juggernauts of personalities. And I've gotten to see them not on like a meet and greet, can you sign this thing, but like what do you think of this? Yeah. And I'm like, why are you asking me? Like, I don't think shit. You talk. Like, why would I talk right now? Do you know who you are? Like, for real. So
that's a funny way to say it.
But so I don't think I ever want to give up some of those marquee lights.
Absolutely.
I think I want to include them in my journey. And so to get where we're going now, like, I met a dude who worked at Tesla. And I've always loved cars. I've raced cars. I've drawn cars. I've just been a gearhead my whole life. And I was like, what do you do? And he was like, I design cars. Mind you, I've never met anyone who designed cars before. I met him last year. And that wasn't even like a tangible thing. Like, there was a lot of mystique about that process. Like, I always thought like you had to be Enzo Ferrari's grandson. And like, I didn't know the steps. And I was like, well, how'd you get into that? And he was like, oh, I went to this school and I did this and I put together a portfolio and blah, blah, blah. And I don't think he knew that I was about to do this, but I just did what he said. And I put together a portfolio and I applied to the school and like, we're moving along. And it's funny because I'm 29. I'm in classrooms with 18 to 20-year-olds.
What's that like? I just got to stop at that.
It's fucking weird because I've never been the older guy. This is my first time.
What's it like being in, like, I always have this borderline fantasy of going back to school with this brain and not my young ass brain.
It's dope because you move so fast and you have a lot more to draw from. Yeah. And like, I could always draw, but every time he teaches me something, it's like a plug-in. Like, I already know how to do it. So when you tell me new information, I can apply it very fast. I'm not learning how to draw from scratch. Mm-hmm. But there are moments. I remember we were talking about Silver Lake, and I was like, yeah, man, like, we were talking about gentrification and whatever. And I was like, yeah, Silver Lake was a whole different situation back then. And this kid looks up and he's like, how old are you? Because to him, like, Silver Lake was always hipster Silver Lake. And I was like, how old am I? Like, no one's ever asked me.
You're like, how old are you?
Yeah, how old are you, punk? But he was 18, and that's okay. That's okay.
That's if you're Silver Lake, he knows.
He was like 12.
If you're 18 and you were born in motherfucking, I think that's 98, 99, something like that. Like, you barista man bun Silver Lake is all you've ever seen.
You know.
You didn't know graffiti and stab you Silver Lake until that didn't exist on your timeline. That wasn't a place to navigate or to consciously think about when you were going to a party over there at Echo Park or Venice or all that stuff. Like, it's a whole different ballgame where I'm don't get me wrong, I'm happy that these places are changing in a way where, like, the aspect of violence and all that is not there, but also, like, let's not forget that a lot of people are being pushed out of their homes and being priced out and neighborhoods are changing. So, like, fuck most of those coffee places. Fuck all of that. Like,
So it's a weird position, man, when we're talking about gentrification. Not to go too down the gentrification fucking road.
We could do a whole show on that. So it's just
the rabbit hole.
I think if you were to have a genuine motivation and you involved communities in their own resurgence, then I'm sure those communities wouldn't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
But it's because you can go into a neighborhood, open up shop, and then the residents of that neighborhood feel unwelcomed at your establishment in their home.
Yeah.
That's when we got
It's also on a community level, that fear of like asking the question, that fear of understanding. Like when you can do something and you can just because you can, it's easier to go gung-ho than to deal with adversity or deal with pushback before you even.
But it depends on why somebody likes you. So, okay, so if rent is cheaper somewhere, that feels like, you know, someone's slumming. So if a girl used to like one of us because we were hood or we had, you know, gold teeth or braids or whatever, like, that's not a nice feeling. Like we are what we are because that's all we know. And if you're trying to like take a tour, I have some issues even with like Vice and all these people that like, there's almost like a National Geographic element of like you getting real close to the lion. Like, bitch, we're regular people. Like, there's no, there's something
very well said.
There's something very weird and almost detached about looking at this lens of like, we're going to take you into this area you wouldn't drive through. Like, we're all people, man.
Absolutely.
These are some of the best people I've met in my life, and these are some of the best neighborhoods I've met in my life, and these are the best energies and honest people who have looked out for me and taken care of me. And like, we paid our taxes. You paid more to live where you live. I paid with getting beat up a few times, and
absolutely,
that's the tax it was. And like, it made me a stronger person. I always think about that with success of like, how do I want to raise my kids? Like, I don't want spoiled, like, bratty, like, private school kids, but I also like don't want to force them to be in dangerous situations when they don't have to be there.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like, again, balance. Like, balance seems to be a reoccurring theme of like struggling to have it all. And I've been lucky enough where I usually do get to have it all. Like, when people tell me I can't do things, or when people tell me like, you kind of have to do it this way, and you have to sacrifice this. Like, well, you know what? I'm just going to try to have everything.
Yeah.
And we'll see how that works.
I want to talk about this recurring theme and notion of sense of self, right? Being that you've literally been an author of your own life, and life itself has seemed to be your publisher. Right.
Well said.
In which
I'll take it.
You know, you go
You're
after.
Very good with your words lately. I just got to shout that out. You've really been on some shit.
I'm just trying to soak it in.
You're really doing it.
It's love, but life is also the best publisher, and you being willing to continue writing for the love of not only your craft but your story. Like, you're an author that wants the hero to win. So it's only a matter of time before you find your story. And I want to take it back. It's more so a two-part question, in that being that you were raised in this kind of culture and scene in LA where music was like, there's such a resurgence in fashion and entertainment, and that lifestyle was so prevalent. And also your friends, the brothers that you grew up with, are not only entertainers but also like facilitators and curators of the culture. And whatever level in life that you could have seen yourself as being, you were always in their stories, right? You were always afforded the opportunity to be at a level that was envied by most, right? You can look at somebody and they have the house and the kids and they're building the white picket fence and they have a dog and they're looking at you as if like the life they hadn't led. Yeah. And you're looking at them conversely and being like, bro, if you only knew, like, I want this. Yeah. Right? Being at this age, going through all of that, kind of knowing that we're dealing with facades and identities and what we put out, what was it like for you to finally make that choice of shit, like, maybe I do want to go back to school, right? Maybe I do maybe I do have all of these creative passions. Maybe I have experienced many things. Maybe a lot of these things are only moments away from taking true form and affording me that picturesque fairy tale ending. What was it that moved you and allowed you to take the, I guess, the normalcy of education and schooling in something that you have newly seen as something of interest? And also, were you equipped? Like, did you draw? Were you always drawing? Have cars always been something that have driven you? Like, what was it like?
To answer both. For I got sick of myself. Like, I got really tired of this dude who always showed up with a new project. And I felt like my friends felt the same way. Like, it was almost like they didn't even want to hear it no more. Like,
I got an idea.
One week I'm developing an app. 1 week I'm opening a restaurant. 1 week I'm doing this. One thing I'm doing this. And they're just like, yo, like, call me when something works. Like, I'm not about to sit down about this no more. And I kind of felt the same way about myself.
It's got to feel exhausting just to live.
It is, because
it really is, bro.
You put up shots. Nothing's going in. You grew up people telling you you're smart, and you start believing it. And my mother always said, like, yo, if you're so smart, where's the money? Like,
dagger.
That it was, but I appreciate it, because this whole like tortured artist, like, woe is me genius shit, it doesn't mean anything.
It's a dagger of truth.
You can't take it to the bank.
Yeah.
And once you completely break down and you start to build yourself up from scratch, you go, what do I want to do? Right? So I looked at that. Cars have always been in my life. I've always drawn. I've never taken it seriously. I've always loved writing and art, right? And I've always looked at art as my hobby and writing as my career. And as soon as I switched them over, things started making more sense. So like writing, even as a hobby, like I'm getting more work as a songwriter now than I ever did when it was supposed to pay my bills. Because now I'm writing with my friends. I'm working with producers that I love, like just the homies. No writing camps, no adult play dates, no working for this like new hot artist who's half retarded. Like, it's not, there was a sense of, what does this artist want versus what do I want to bring to the game?
Yeah.
And once I felt myself losing that, like, what do I want to contribute, and going like, oh, what does Beyonce need right now?
For real.
That makes me a bad writer, right? So once I kind of went back to like, well, I like writing with this person, this person, this person. That's when it's fun. That's when things started kind of being oiled and working again. Yeah. And then with the art, the
pressure was off.
And the pressure's off because I pay my bills other ways. So this is strictly fun. And it might give me some money. So cool. The degree thing, I have a lot of friends who looked at me and were like, yo, you're about to start a 4-year degree at 29. Like, and I'm looking back at them like, motherfucker, you 38 and you don't know what you're doing. So I'm going to probably graduate at 32, 33, and that's cool with me. I'll take some steps back. I definitely don't mind taking a step back to take a real step forward.
For sure.
And I think a lot of people have seen me peripherally and thought of me as successful because I've been allowed a guest pass into this amazing world of LA and of parties and adventures and experiences, and like, I can't do it if it's not on my ticket. I don't want someone else to vouch for me. Maybe there's some ego left because I don't want you to pay my way through this game. Yeah. Like, I want to contribute. And I'm still getting afforded amazing adventures and things that I don't necessarily deserve. But I'm also not stupid enough to be like, I don't need help. Yeah. Like, I love help. Help is dope.
Absolutely.
People care about me. That's rare. People want me to win, and they're rooting for me, and that makes me want to work harder. And once you calibrate things in a certain way where things start making sense, work is fun. So the effort you put in makes more sense, and success is addictive. So when you start working out and you start seeing some results, that's what makes you work out.
Absolutely.
Right? When you start eating better and feeling better and
I wish I was able to hold on to that longer though, dog.
But that's the thing.
I'll put in 2
but
weeks and then
that's the theme of my life is like trying to maintain inspiration. Like anyone can do it for a week. Like you see the homie fucking losing weight and you're like, oh, I'm in the gym.
Literally, G, I'm the type of dude that like I'll put 3 weeks into it and like it's like you said, it's really all or nothing. Because if I'm going super hard on a diet and I have a chocolate covered almond, you best believe I'm having Carl's Jr. that night. Like I'm going.
But that's
off.
the thing.
Like,
I think it's been packaged to us to believe that like you do this, you'll have this, then you can go home.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think the concept is it's a lifestyle change. So you have to make changes. And if you want and that
stand
life,
by them.
And it's cool. My mother told me something that was so crazy, and I can't believe she even said this, but she was like, the path you're on now is very normal. And you're probably going to live paycheck to paycheck. You're probably going to have an apartment. You're going to find a woman that loves you because you're a sweet person. You're going to have a family. You're going to have and if that's what you're okay with, I support it. But I'm just showing it to you just in case you're not okay with this. And I wasn't. I was like, I want to do amazing things. So I always feel like when people tell me like, don't worry if you fail, that's what makes me work hard. Yeah. Like, it's okay. It'll be fine. Like, regardless. And I'm like, oh shit. It's not about to be fine regardless. Like, it's about to be terrible regardless.
For real.
Like, so when people kind of pet me on the back and kind of be like, it's okay. Like, I'm not a big participation trophy person.
Not at all.
That's not what I want on my mantle. That's not something I'm proud of. So if you ain't first, you're last. And that's kind of how I've lived my life. And I've taken a lot of risks. I've lost it all many times. I've lost my life savings. I've lost, I've shut people out. I've done things that
just starting like different things.
Starting over. And I'm a gambler. So I'm okay with losing it all because I know that I could build it all quick.
Absolutely.
And that's again a handicap. Like a lot of things that are good about me have hurt me. And a lot of times where knowing that I can recover quick or I can make money quick or I could do these things quick, that was like a fake safety net because it makes you not take a real swing.
It can kill you.
It makes you not put out a real effort because it's not all or nothing because you know you can adapt.
Yeah.
And an effort takes a really long fucking time. That's part of the equation. Is that
for sure.
Like anything you do, because I think I've battled with that a little bit too. Mm-hmm. Anything you kind of do, you have to really like do it for a long time. Even if you're getting quick results or not, it's like push through and kind of force yourself to get through and play the long game. Because that's when you really start to learn like, oh, okay, wait, am I really in this or not?
This is my first time where hard work is working for me more than talent. And it's so much doper. Being talented is not that rewarding.
No.
Being intelligent.
It's empty almost.
Being intelligent is a fucking party trick. Like, okay, you know shit. That's cool. Like, pull a coin out of her ear. Like, it's not tight. Being able to contribute something or being able to learn something and, like, really sweat through it and build the fucking birdhouse with your hands, that's something
overcoming
to be proud
uncertainty.
And there's more fulfillment with that too.
For sure. And that's the thing. Going back to school was like I was a baby again. Like it felt like it was just I was coming back to this infancy of like starting from scratch and no one's impressed by me and that's perfectly okay.
Yeah. Do you ever battle? I wanted to say this earlier. Do you ever battle with your perception among all these kind of phases and now going into this in terms of like how the world is going to perceive you?
Kind of. I used to a lot more, but I'm at the point now where like, am I about to tell my future self that I didn't secure us financially and mentally because I was ashamed that this girl that I never even cared about was going to look at me funny or this dude that don't even like me is going to
think of you different.
You got to look at the big picture.
Yeah.
Like you got to go.
But it's also like friends knowing like, yo, you are smart. You have so much potential, whether it's your parents, your friends, all these things. Like I could see almost playing this character. Like you have to uphold a certain character, even if you're like battling internally. you have to uphold this character because that's what everyone sees. Like, oh, Youssef, you're smart, you're fucking talented, things come easy to you, you can make all these different ideas pop off. But when you reach that point where it's like, am I doing this to kind of just continue being this dude? Like, was there ever that moment for you? You could probably speak on this a little more.
I want to chime in because I think he said something very critical to the pivot in that is, and correct me if I'm wrong, right? But it's one of those things where he's actually actualized his future self, right? So when you start thinking about all this petty shit, when you're engulfed in that, like as I was, and as we all probably had experiences being, the concept of your future self may be present, right? But your present self is drowning with the thought of how people are going to perceive you right now. But the moment you're able to take that leap and really hinge your happiness or your fulfillment on your future self, it becomes a different story.
For sure. You hit it right on the nail. Like, for me, the problem was finding a target to aim at. And so now that I have a target, I can hit the ground running. I'm not afraid of hard work. I just don't want to work towards something I don't like.
Absolutely.
And I didn't want to put effort into something I wasn't sure about. But at the same time, like, I ended up doing that. I put effort into a lot of things that I didn't really love. And I put effort and energy into a lot of people that I didn't really need around or whatever. But all those things were like, look, I can't even tell you that this is the final result.
Yeah.
This is just where I am right now.
Absolutely.
And I love being able to tell people that, like, it's fucking hard. I got people back home in Egypt I take care of. I got my mom I take care of. My, so other members of my family, my friends. Like, I have so many burdens, and not even burdens. They're not burdens. Responsibilities. And I'm okay telling people, like, LA has a tricky way of making you feel like you're the only person who's not a millionaire.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
That's so true.
Everybody is like killing it because everybody's lying. So you don't have the comfort in those structures. The more people are honest about those things, then the more we can start contributing to all of our success.
Absolutely.
And so it's this, we always joke about, like, rappers talking about their deals. Like, talk about your deal so we could see if you got a good deal. Like, put it out there. Let's see. Like, I want to know if, I want to know if my deal's bad.
Yeah.
So, like, what'd you get? What'd you bring to the table? And that's the thing, is like, if everybody fronts, if everybody lies, then we can't help each other.
Absolutely.
And we don't know where our journey is in the race. Not that we even need to, because you should be focusing on your journey.
Yeah.
But you're focusing on other people's journey and a false standard of their journey.
Absolutely.
And so when you compare yourself to unrealistic standards, you feel like a fucking failure. And you're wondering why everybody's depressed.
And only seeing, like, what you want to see about those people's journeys.
Yeah, because you're only seeing what they want to show you.
Yeah.
No one's Instagramming themselves crying. Like,
For real, though.
It's just not happening. Like, those social media personas are, this is me at my best.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it like, this is you at your always.
Yeah.
Why aren't you ever fucking sad? We've all worked real hard on, like, an outfit, and then you get there and you realize no one's looking at you. And I think that's the same dynamic of, like, all of life is, like, if you really focused on what's going to help you rather than what people are going to think about you, then you'll get to a point where they'll think what you want to think. Yeah. They'll respect you. All of that.
Absolutely.
But the more you try to please them along the journey, the harder it'll be for you to get to wherever you need to go. And I think there's so many handicaps about that. Like, we hurt ourselves all the time trying to keep up with this invisible standard. Yeah. And I see it all the time with girls, with dudes, with everybody. Like, our priorities are so bad. We don't, especially in this community of people, like, we don't talk about our credit. We don't talk about our taxes. We don't talk about our bills. We don't talk about nothing except bottles and rollies and cars and some more shit. And it's like, okay, we're talking about things that are hindering us, but we're not talking about how to get to the next level. And like everybody wants to build, everybody wants to network, like, but you're all fucking lying. Like, I can't do it. I can't build with someone who doesn't have any bricks to contribute. Like, what we gonna build? Like, we can't build nothing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think all those things are very, very true, and it's been a very, very humbling experience to start this journey. But like I said, I've let 4 years go by doing nothing a couple of times. So if I blink and I'm somewhere closer to where I need to be, then so be it. I'm cool with that. And I love my journey. I love the flaws. I love the people around. I'm so, so, so thankful for the people that I've met and the saints that I've been fortunate enough to cross paths with, who've contributed characters to my story. Because if it wasn't for them, my ego would have eaten me alive.
Yeah.
And I love being around people that are so much better than me at things.
Yeah.
I love being around people who are so much nicer than me. Like, I always joke about like Julian being my like party liaison, because like no one would invite me. Like, I'm fucking mean and like whatever, but because he's such a people person, like I get to be in these places, and like eventually people get to know me and know like I'm not mean. I'm just like, I'm a different kind of nice.
You're just reserved.
Yeah, I'm just reserved, and like I keep to myself, and like I talk a lot, but I've just always been raised in this like never say in 7 what you could say in 4. Like get to the point. And so, you know, it's been fun. It's been beautiful. It's been scary. It's been a beautiful, conflicted, alcohol-driven journey that I wouldn't trade for the world. These are the people I was exactly supposed to meet. This is the person I was exactly supposed to be, to a T, to a millimeter. Like, this is how it's supposed to be. And I'm okay with that now. I was always very like, this is wrong, or this isn't fair. And like, who told you it was supposed to be fair? Like, what reference are you drawing from? What's been fair to where you think shit is fair? Yeah. It's not fair, but it is what it is, and it's correct, and it's fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you're still very young. Yeah. Like, pointing that out.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm real world young. I'm LA old, but real. North Carolina, I'm young.
And world young, like your parents at your age, like had you, and like think about the transition they made.
For sure.
But even like, fuck LA, like you got 20 in your age.
Yeah, right? There's
the word 20 is in your age.
Yeah. Like, for 6 more months.
Yeah. You're good though, and none of that shit really matters at all. Because it flies by super fast.
None. I'm getting closer. Me and Kerr Roosevelt always talk. I hate calling him that. Me and Kevin always talk about just deciding to become this person you want to be, and like this concept of like a delay. Like, when I get money or when I do this, I'm gonna dress like this. I'm gonna look like this. I'm gonna go to these places. I'm gonna hang out with these people. I'm gonna talk like this. I'm just this person that you aspire to be. And then we both kind of hit a moment where we're like, you know, we could do that now, right? Yeah. Well, that's the thing, like, you could just be who you would like to be, and as long as that's in line with who you are, be the best. Be your best self.
You damn right.
Look how you want to look. Act like how you want to act. If you have values, if you have morals that you stand
You're out
by,
here hitting that story arc, B.
Stand by them.
Yeah.
You know, be that dude.
I'll tell you this, as the administrative assistant to your publisher called Life, and being able to look at your story thus far from the outside looking in, is you were born to do this. You were meant to write this story. And it's so beautiful to see the progression in your prose. Yeah. And from me to you, your book is going to be extremely, extremely beneficial to all of those around you. And I damn sure believe it's going to be cathartic to you as the author.
For sure.
And the one thing I could ever tell you as a note on your current story is keep writing, because this is what it was meant to be.
Amen.
And with that, we say, Mama, we made it!
Wow. My God.